Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 98. We are just two episodes away from the big 100. In case this is your first time listening or watching, let me tell you what we are. We're the internet's only live roundtable discussion podcast that talks exclusively about the world of visual journalism. So, if you have an interest in photojournalism, broadcast journalism, and the news, gear, and topics that relate to those subjects, we think you'll enjoy the show. Whether you love or hate it, though, please take a moment to give us a rating on iTunes or the Google Play Store, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can always hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I guarantee you that we will look at every comment, review, and post that you submit, and we'll make changes accordingly. Won't we, Ron?
Yes, we often make changes in our show programming.
All the time.
For example, I'm going to be less political from now on.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Indeed. We are neither left, right, nor center. We're just talking about visual journalism. Finally, you can find links to all our social media and everything we talk about over at www.aroundthelens.com. Our panelist, I am pleased to tell you, is a Pulitzer Prize winner by the name of Cheryl Diaz Meyer. Cheryl, please tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been in the business over 25 years. I attended Western Kentucky University, got a journalism degree, and started my career at the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, where I worked for a few years. And then I ended up at the Dallas Morning News in Texas, which is where David Leeson and I won the 2004 Pulitzer Prize for Breaking News Photography for our work on the Iraq invasion. And in recent years, I was working at McClatchy as the visual editor. And I left this May so I could return to my love of shooting pictures. And now I'm freelancing.
Nice, nice. So, you know, I don't get Pulitzer Prize winners on the show very often. So, of course, I want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about your personal experience, you know, winning the prize. Specifically, kind of give us a little bit of the story around it, you know, how you found out you won, you know, the process of submitting, the process of going there and getting the prize, what it felt like to receive this honor. Just kind of talk to us a little about, first of all, the story that, you know, you won, and then sort of, you know, the kind of all the stuff that happened, how you found out, et cetera, et cetera.
So David Leeson and I were both embedded. I was embedded with the Marines. He was embedded with the U.S. Army. We both were sort of different legs going into the invasion, and we were embedded both for, I think, about a month. After the month that I spent with the Marines, which was fantastic, I was there with the 2nd Tank Battalion out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and they were just incredibly welcoming. I'm sure they had a lot of trepidation about having a woman journalist, because actually at the time, there were no women on the front lines of battle. So I was with a tank battalion. We were one of the first ones in, and I've been told that actually I was the first woman to enter Iraq, because we were, you know, a forward moving group. And after I was embedded for a month, I left the Marines and worked unilaterally out of Baghdad for another month. And I hired my own translator, had sort of a staff, a driver, stayed in a hotel in downtown Baghdad. And basically, for a while, I worked with a reporter. And then once that reporter left, I continued to work on stories that I had pitched to the paper. And they were things like the Baghdad Mental Hospital, a story about a woman whose home was wiped out at a very significant staging point on the edge of Baghdad. and just kind of a variety of stories like that. That some of them I actually ended up writing the stories if the writer wasn't available. And then the following year, the year that after I got back was incredibly busy. I probably, there was just a lot going on, I don't know. I probably had, some PTSD going on. I'd been to other kind of war kind of situations before. I'd covered Afghanistan right after 9/11. And, it's just kind of raw. It's kind of raw. I remember getting back and, just being on edge. But that year was very busy. I was doing a lot of speaking about my work, just in general about the topic of the war. People were really interested in knowing. They wanted to know what our men and women were doing over there. And, I had pictures and I had stories to tell. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And the paper was pretty, pretty accommodating. They knew that they had had a lot of experience with people who had been in war zones. My boss was just really sensitive to that. So they gave me a lot of leeway. And, some days I came home, I was working on just sort of nothing, kind of like a restaurant review or just something that basically was really simple, just so that I could kind of heal and, chill out after this. And,
you mentioned simple stuff. I just want to ask you really quick, was it weird going back to shooting stuff like restaurant reviews and something, ultimately inconsequential compared to where you were at in the middle of a war zone, documenting real human, conflict and anguish and war? Was it tough to get back into that sort of mode?
Actually, it was okay. I think I needed it. If I had felt like it was, not what I wanted to be doing, or like I needed more challenge, I could have taken that on. But at the time, I was just, I think I really needed just to chill out. Like I really needed just to be somewhat disengaged and not emotionally involved, because I had just felt like my emotions had been taken on a roller coaster ride for several months, and it's just mentally really draining. You were a war photographer yourself, Dave, so you know what that's like. It really takes it out of you, right? So I did take the time to just, it was fine. It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for me personally, adjusting that first few months or so, having, adjusting back to reality, and sort of the, the things that people worry about here in the States that, you kind of just really. And that took a little bit of adjusting, but I think that's true of almost anyone who goes overseas. But also that sort of sense of, meaning you get from being overseas, I think is pretty palpable too. And that's sort of one of the things that many miss. And you went back multiple times, right?
Yeah, I did. I went back multiple times.
Was it that desire to continue to tell that story? But did you get something out of going back that you didn't get from other projects?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, the immediate, the invasion, and I've said this before, is that there's nothing quite like when you're almost killed with somebody, right? That's incredibly bonding. That's incredibly, it just kind of brings everything down to the most, core things. You're just trying to survive and take care of each other, look out for the people who are around you. yeah, and it is. It just, everything weighs so much more on you. Every decision that you make, the consequences can be so grave. On a day-to-day basis when you're here in the U.S. and, if you, I don't know, you're late for a meeting, or you forget to buy something from the store. I mean, it's like, okay, big deal. But when you're there, everything that you do has huge consequences, and it can be as big as, you might, cause the death of someone, right?
Right.
And that's like, or you yourself might get killed. Okay. But, one of the things that always terrified me was like, what if I made a decision and somebody else got killed because of something that I did, or I wanted to, take a picture somewhere. And I just didn't know, like, how would I ever live with that? It was always these like huge ethical dilemmas. And I was actually, I remember I would call my boss pretty frequently, every day or so, to just say, hey, this is what I came across today. And I just didn't know what to do, or this is what I did. And my boss at the time, Ken Geiger, who eventually was with National Geographic and is now freelancing, told me, he said, Cheryl, if you cause the death of someone, well, that's easy. You'll be fired.
Okay.
I was like, fired? Like, are you kidding me? Like, who cares about fired? My point is like, how do I live with myself?
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis? Like, how do you move forward from that?
I don't know. That's therapy, probably alcohol.
Probably some pretty major, yeah. Because I'm sure there are people who, and I'm sorry, but in war, mistakes get made. There's friendly fire incidents. There's all kinds of things that happen. And you look back and you think, oh my God, could I have done it differently? Could I have helped the situation? Could I have, made this thing not happen? I'm sure there's a lot of second guessing.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Obviously you won the Pulitzer. Talk to me about how you found out and what it was like receiving the award.
Well, you'd asked earlier about, how the thing gets put together. Actually, Ken Geiger, our boss at the time, put it together with the other editors. So it wasn't like I was actually that much of a major part of it. I mean, they knew our work, David Leeson and my work, and then they edited the piece together. They printed it, submitted it. There was a lot of back and forth, and they were pretty savvy about this because, I mean, I myself at that time had never been a part of a Pulitzer Prize, so I wouldn't have known what to do. But they were, pretty knowledgeable about it, so they knew kind of what it entailed and just sort of the caliber of material that needed to be submitted, how it needed to be submitted, that sort of thing. Because at that time, the Dallas Morning News had multiple Pulitzers already, even before we won the Pulitzer, the photo department itself. So there was a lot of experience in that. But we had... there were hints and things like that, but I have to be honest, like, I never really, believed it until it was announced. And the reason is that I didn't want, I just didn't want any kind of heartbreak, right? I didn't want to build myself up to believe, we knew that the work was worthy. I think at that point, maybe we knew that we had been, that we were finalists, but nothing was really set in stone. There were kind of rumors, and I think we were told that we were finalists. But again, I just didn't want to, I just didn't want the heartbreak, because in truth, we actually had a colleague who had been told that he won the Pulitzer, and then somehow it didn't happen, or it was retracted. I can't remember the details of how it happened, but it was very devastating. And so I just didn't want to have that on my, I just was like, you know, I did the work. It is what it is. It stands for itself. And, you know, whatever happens, happens. So in any case, the day of the announcement, you know, it always happens on a specific day. You know, we were told to come in, David and I. And so they were kind of like, there was like, we think so. But again, there was nothing ever set in stone. And then we watched the announcement. And then as it was announced, it was like, okay, then it's reality. And David and I jumped up and we hugged and kissed each other. And the staff was all around and congratulated us. And ironically, so we went to a pub and celebrated the Pulitzer. And that same night, I left for the Philippines on an assignment.
Wow.
And actually, there was no stopping. This assignment had already been booked. And I didn't, at the time when it was booked, it was like kind of dependent on the writer, because the writer had already kind of, I think, booked it or something. And so actually, you'll appreciate this. Somebody called the airline, and I think I was flying American Airlines because we were out of Dallas, and they got word that I had just won the Pulitzer, and they stuck me in first class. So
oh wow, nice.
I was like, okay, living large, I can appreciate this.
Ron, we got to work together, okay? Next time you or I are flying somewhere, we call up the airline and we say that we won, the other person won the Pulitzer, all right? Deal?
All right.
Sounds like a good deal to me. I'm up for any time that first class trip, boy.
All right.
All right, there you
Once
go.
you go first class, hard to second coach again.
That's right. That's right.
Don't worry, I've done that, so it's doable.
Well, Cheryl, it's great to have you on, and obviously, you know, we had David on episode 75, our Pulitzer Prize special. We talked to him for a good almost 2 hours about his experience and also other topics related to the world. If you want to listen to a very impassioned person speak for 2 hours, I definitely recommend that listen or watch. It's a great time. So glad to have the other side of that pair on the show to talk about their experience. But we do have much more important things to talk about on the, you know, Visual Journalism Roundtable show. I was joking with Ron, nothing like bringing on a Pulitzer Prize winner to talk about the, you know, extremely important topic of Halloween, which is just right around the corner tomorrow. If you're listening to this, you know, on the 30th, the day it records. If not, you're probably like, Halloween? That happened weeks ago. But anyways, yeah, Halloween is tomorrow here. And, you know, I have, you know, dressed up my son and our family. We did a little Pokemon-themed costume thing going on. You know, I was Ash, my son was Pokemon, my wife was Misty, and my other son, my baby, was a Pokeball. So it was cute. It was cute. My son got tons of attention as Pikachu. He looked so adorable in his little Pikachu outfit running around. That was great. But, you know, we're talking about documentation of Halloween. So let me throw it out to either of you and let you know, ask, have either of you documented Halloween as a topic at all in your career for anything?
Let me give Cheryl a chance to take a break so she can get some saliva in her throat there. One of my first assignments for the paper when I started was covering a Halloween party for a local church here in the island. And some Protestant sect, I can't remember if they're Baptist or what they were, but anyway, they didn't want to have ghosts and goblins and whatnot. Some religions don't celebrate Halloween at all. My particular religion, we don't celebrate Halloween, but some people do, and some people, they want to make it a light, Mormon? Halloween light, something like that. Yeah.
I didn't know you were Mormon.
I drink Coca-Cola. Not a Mormon.
Anyway, blasphemy.
So I'm not wearing a white shirt or riding a bicycle. I can't be construed as a Mormon.
What's your name tag, Ron? We have to talk about that for another show. We'll have another
white man wearing white
show at some point.
White man wearing white. So Halloween themed in this particular church, they decided we can't have ghosts and goblins and devils. Let's have a Noah's Ark themed Halloween party. So the pastor of the congregation, he dressed up like Noah, and I guess the kids dressed up like animals. And this is a question to both of you two, because I don't know how much of a biblical scholar you two might be. But by any chance, do you know? So the pastor was Noah, and the pastor's wife was Noah's wife. Do either of you two know the name of Noah's wife?
No.
You know, I watched that Noah movie a while back with
You can't
that
take
guy,
a guess.
Mrs. Noah.
Exactly. Thank you, Dave. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Noah, and they had all the animals, and I just anyway, I shot the place up just like any other event.
Mona.
Mona.
Noah. Mona.
Mrs. Noah. So, you know, one of the problems you have with shooting Halloween parties would be lighting, just like a lot of the stuff.
Hold on, Ron. Let's wait for the cops to go by.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Let me mute. Sorry.
Okay. Well, now I have to talk. Anyways, while Ron waits for
dead air. Yeah. So, you know, we have lighting situations. We have, you know, people at night. We have low light. We have things like that to take in consideration. You got to shoot higher ISOs. Luckily, this was in the realm of digital, so I could crank it up. I didn't have to change film. As far as getting people to, you know, they're dressed up. They're there to be photographed, so it's not hard to get your subjects. It's a pretty easy assignment, really, when you have to do something like that, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you know, the only ever thing I've shot that's like strictly Halloween, sort of, you know, newsy photojournalist style was the Halloween parade in New York City. Now that is a parade. Let me tell you, if you want to go see a crazy parade in New York City, go to the Halloween parade. That's just, you know, you're going to see all kinds of crazy outfits. Some very well done, some not so well done, but it is like a raucous, alcohol-fueled party where everybody's in crazy outfits, and it's just a fun time because, you know, again, like you said, people are there to be photographed, and, you know, they're all willing to like pose for you, or, you know, whatever they want to be photographed, so they're not fighting you, obviously. And it's a parade, and it's fun, and you just see some wild creativity sometimes. Yeah, I shot it like twice, and each time it was just a neat, fun event, and, you know, that's the only Halloween assignment I've ever photographed. But I'd say, you know, and just, you know, in terms of what do you take from that if you're like out there, obviously you got to bring a flash if you want to get anything, you know, decent from your work. You know, you got to have a flash because, you know, depending on what kind of environment you're shooting. Although this was probably about, probably about 7 years ago or so since I photographed these. So obviously the technology with the camera gear has gotten better, so you can probably get away with some more low light stuff. But I think whenever you're shooting a parade in general, it's a mostly a high impact, high moving event. So if you're going to go out there without a flash, you're kind of going to, you know, be at a handicap. So I would say bring a flash and then get an offshoot camera cord and shoot, you know, your shots with the flash off cord, so you're not like, you know, doing front blown out shots every single time. You can get some decent, interesting lighting.
Zach is here with us tonight because I'd like to hear him debate that topic with you. Zach doesn't use a flash.
What, using a flash?
Yeah.
Or using off-camera flash?
Any flash.
Flash is great. I mean, I know what you're. Okay, yeah, he shoots a lot of protests at night. I get. Yeah, it'd be great to hear his take on it. Like I said, cameras have gotten a lot better. Maybe the low light sensitivity is better. I don't know, but when I shot them, I always use an off-camera flash, and it helped out a lot. But how about you, Cheryl? Have you shot anything Halloween related?
You know, actually, my now that I have a kid, I usually do little videos.
Okay.
Just because the sound is so much fun, and so far I've kind of restricted it mostly to iPhone video, just because I can turn around and edit it. But you know, it's a lot of chasing around, try to keep up with these kids. You know.
Oh yeah.
But you know, just try to use the ambient light, because obviously it's like I'm not going to carry around a big flash. You know.
Right.
If I'm working, that's a whole nother story. You know. Then I've got the gear, and then that's what I go in for. I really much prefer an event like Ron was saying, like a Noah's Ark kind of theme event, just because you can kind of focus on it, right? Whereas if you're just chasing kids around who are going from house to house, it's actually pretty challenging, you know, to like. Because, you know, every time you go, it's like maybe a brand new set of kids, or if you follow one set of kids, it's a new house owner. So you quick have to kind of introduce yourself. Hi, this is what I'm doing. Whereas when you have an event, I feel like you can kind of park yourself, work a situation until you feel like you've nailed it, especially if you think it's one that has potential, and then move on to another part of it. Yeah, we actually have a friend who is Sufi, and they have a Sufi house that is like I think it's the National Sufi House in Washington. And for a while, we lived like right close to there, and this friend would invite us. And it was really great because it was all sort of really kid-friendly, because sometimes I think, Halloween can kind of go either way, where it can be sort of really terrifying. Like I've been to malls in the DC area where I've looked up and the display is so terrifying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want my kid to see that. But yeah, I like those kind of situations where now like I actually like think about that a lot. It's not just the shooting, but I want to make sure that it's a situation that I feel like is like where the kids feel safe, and where they can explore and not then leave and have, bad dreams for the next 5 years.
I was thinking of other shoots I did. I did one other photo assignment for when I was in Syracuse, where I photographed not a haunted house, but like a scare house.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting experience.
How was that?
All my stuff turned out like garbage because it was like you have to shoot, you're trying to get the reactions of the people, and you're shooting in close quarters, and you have to use a flash because it's so dark in there.
Right.
And so I kind of got a few shots, but it was something where, if I were to do it again, I would do it right, so it was not, what's that?
Well, what do you mean I would do it right when you say, what are you looking at?
Well, I would probably do it. I mean, I kind of did it okay. I would say I'd never shot inside of a scare house before, and so I would just, I kind of went in, I shot my shots, I got something out of it, and I went on to do something else. So if I were to do it again, if I had the opportunity, if I would, like somebody said, hey, go shoot, people getting scared at our house, I'd probably spend a lot longer on it and try to, get, balance out the flash and maybe get like a battery pack for my flash or something like that. So I can strobe a lot more and try and get that scared reaction and stuff like that. Like if you've seen online, there's, I always see these photographs of people who, get really scared at this one point in a haunted house. It's like a photo opportunity. And, I think that would be, that's it's like, that's the big point when you want to get, if you get in a scare house, is getting the reaction shot. So I think I would just work the subject more. I didn't work the subject as long as I should have, and so the overall result was kind of adequate, but not good, not great.
So what do you guys think about wearing like a headlamp or something like that? I mean, would that be sort of
cover the event?
kosher? Yeah, because like think about it, you can't see anything. Like especially when I'm envisioning a scare house, I'm thinking like it's pitch dark, right? And then maybe they have like kind of disco lights or something where it just kind of flashes randomly. And but some of these places, it's like they're created in a way where it's all like black, where you have to go through like black curtain something, and how are you even going to get a focus, right? I mean, what are you going to shoot F8 and then?
I think something like that, I would definitely be staging myself, I'd probably, be working with the folks who run the show and trying to position myself at a point where I thought I could get a decent shot, where there's like a really good scare point. And then I would try and try and pre-focus as much as I can. And then just, try and set my flash up to a point where I can shoot at a low enough power to where I can get a quick recycle rate, and I can get a lot of shots off in a certain, in a go, and then just kind of hope you get something in that sort of, try and, kind of estimate where you think the position of the person is going to be. Because like, you're right. If you're trying to autofocus in the dark, it's going to be slow and you're going to miss the moment. You kind of have to pre-focus and shoot with probably, slightly higher aperture.
Mm-hmm. And then the other concern I would have about using a headlamp would be ruining the event for the people that were there. You're totally altering the scene by having an external light source in the setup there. Mm-hmm. I would probably not use a headlamp. Pre-focus
I mean, use a headlamp
and,
to get where you're supposed to go, but once you get
focus.
there, you know, stay in that one position.
No, Dave, I think we should stumble around in the dark and break our valuable equipment.
Or you could be the scary photographer,
ruin
you
the
know, and
event.
jump out and be like, I'm taking your picture. Ah.
Oh, when you think
I play
about
that
it,
every
once
day.
you get the flash in their face, right, and they get the blitz in their eyes, you know, that's almost as terrifying as having a somebody spooky.
Well, I figure your flash can almost be like an effect, an added effect to make
Right,
the
exactly.
scene more scary.
Right. Well, sometimes, you know, flashes have that like pre-flash, right? So in a way, I'm like thinking, well, if you had a headlamp on, what would be so bad with that? Because, you know, the pre-flash kind of gives it away so that the camera can focus.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why I said I would do pre-focusing and manual focus. Get my shot already, so when they pop around the corner, I know they're coming. Bam, got them. Anyway,
You guys are real pros.
You just want to hide in the dark, you know. You want to find a spot, hide in the
it's
dark, maybe
amazing I
behind a
haven't got a
sheet.
Pulitzer for this yet.
I don't know. I've been asking myself this. I'm like, next time I shoot Halloween, I need a headlamp. I don't
Cheryl
know.
could be the first person.
If I admit to this, I'll let you know.
When I was at Syracuse, one of my fellow students had an idea, and I don't know if he ever executed on it, but if he didn't, well, he should have by now. But his idea was essentially to set up a camera and flashes or whatever at his front door, and so when people knocked on the door would open, and it would take a picture of the kids, you know, holding out their bags, saying "trick or treat." Excuse me. And then, of course, the idea being that you do this over like decades, and you can kind of get a flavor of, or see the flavor of how Halloween costumes change over time, you know. And it's sort of like it would be like, you know, a long-term project, obviously. But that was his idea. I don't know if he ever executed on it, but you know, he should.
Yeah.
So there you go. Maybe he'll win the Pulitzer for that.
Actually, when you think about it, it would be a really awesome neighborhood gift, because as these kids grow up and they get older, I mean, just like tonight, I randomly was on my iPhone, and it said, you know, do you want to download Google Drive? And I'm like, well, I already have Google Drive. That's odd. So anyway, I clicked on it anyway, just to make sure that we were all on the same page for this thing tonight. And I discovered a video that I had shot like 2 years ago, Halloween, and that had all these like neighborhood friends of ours on. So it was my daughter, but it was also like the little other neighborhood girls there. And so I just sent it out to my neighbors to just say, because I thought, you know, maybe they've seen this recently, maybe not, but I bet they'll have a kick out of seeing their kids from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I've been
It's fun to
archiving.
watch things change year after year. I like any of those long-term projects like that, when you look back and you see things as they were.
Yeah.
My buddy's got 2 teenage daughters, and I much preferred them when they were smaller. So I like the old days. They just drive me nuts now, these kids.
That's
Yeah,
a
I'll
whole
probably
other
like my
topic.
children. I'll probably like my children more when they're younger than when they're older. But we'll see. They get on my nerves sometimes, but I love them.
I'm not there yet,
this show is like a long-term project, Ron. You know, think about it. You know, we're
The show is
approaching
a
our
long-term
2-year mark.
I think we've both grown and improved over the years with this show. Or
Yeah, can you imagine
however
what it's
long
going to be
it's
like
been.
10 years from now, 20 years from now? Man, it's going to be crazy.
I know. I might actually have an
If it
actual
goes that
microphone by
long.
then. I don't know.
Maybe, you know,
Don't you have a
Oh,
Yeti?
maybe
Yeah.
you guys need a you know, those like notes in a bottle that you send out to sea, right? But you
Mhm.
don't send it out to sea, but you just kind of take a guess about what you might be talking about in 10 years. Like what
There
kind
you
of
go.
Hey, you know what we
technology
really
you might be talking about? Or,
we really need a female co-host.
is that so? Maybe that might be one of your wishes.
You know what we're talking about in 10 years? We'll be
In 10
talking about
years,
the
that could be a
12-year
long
anniversary of the show.
All right. That's a long. That's
We'll be talking about how we've been on for 12
long-term
years.
hope, right? You might aim a little
I think
sooner.
a
like,
female
that's
Pulitzer
something-
Prize winning co-host.
There you go. Nothing but Pulitzer Prize winners on this show. Ron,
Let's
you
just see how
and
tonight
I were
goes.
out. It's going to be
Well,
Cheryl.
if we
it's going
win,
to be David
Dave, if we
Leeson,
win,
and
then
2
we
other
can all
actors.
blend in. Then you see.
Say it
hope.
again.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. We can all fly first class.
I'd like that.
By the way, so before we move off the topic of Halloween, are either of you doing anything for Halloween?
I'm not going to dress up as Terry Richardson this year. I've decided it's a bad move this year.
Ooh. You could get
I don't know who that is, but okay.
It's one of our topics today.
Oh, right.
That Terry
It'll come up.
Richardson. Ugh.
I am going to be trick-or-treating with my son.
Great.
So that should be fun.
Yeah.
He was
I'll
a
be
Toad. He was a Toad from Mario Brothers last year. I was Mario, my wife was Princess Peach, and our son was Toad.
Oh, you guys are creative.
It was fun.
Like, you know,
Indeed.
Ron, I grew up in the Philippines. I don't know where you grew up. We didn't do Halloween. So, like, whenever Halloween comes around, I just feel stumped. Like, you know, my daughter makes all the decisions. My husband has now started taking part in these dress-up sessions. I don't know. I just go scary me, I guess.
All right, well, let's go and move on to our next topic this evening. Of course, Harvey Weinstein has been making the news all over Hollywood, you know, basically sexual harassing all the major starlets that we know and love from the movies. And, of course, it's caused a sort of, how do you say, tidal wave of other sort of sexual harassment allegations or stories or allegings, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but you know, it's obviously inspired others to talk about their experiences and what they've been through. So now we have a Harvey Weinstein for the visual journalism realm, specifically with photographer Terry Richardson. So Terry,
that's the name.
Terry has been banned by many top magazines such as Vogue, GQ, Glamour, or Vanity Fair, based on some accusations about his sort of the way he's sort of treated female photo subjects and whatnot. And they've been charged with sort of sexual misconduct. And, you know, I've seen some of his work in the past. He shot the, of course, infamous Katy Perry on a wrecking ball. That was kind of one of his big things.
Well, he shot Senator Obama, too.
Did he? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you know, I know this guy has sort of been sort of a light porn photographer. Like, what's that?
I was just saying, Terry Richardson's a legit photographer. The guy is, he's well known in the fashion circles, and but also equally as well known.
Some would say Harvey Weinstein was a legit movie producer who was very well known in the Hollywood movie circles.
Yes, sir, exactly.
That doesn't mean that he didn't sexually.
No, exactly. That's my point. And he was a wonderful photographer, but he's also a horrible, I don't know, sexual harasser, whatever you want to call it. For me, it was well known for years about Terry Richardson and about
how would you, how would you know about him? I guess I don't deal in
I'm sorry.
for the most part, so I don't.
Yeah, I know. If you probably work more than I do. You're probably more focused on your actual job. I've got time to read about these things. Now, Terry Richardson.
Also, just from the news, it was already being reported.
Well, I mean, just circles, you know, photographers talk.
Really?
And then even, I mean, allegations from people have been, I mean, years and years this has been building up. I don't know when I first heard about people complaining about Terry. Probably was when he first started shooting. I mean, the guy, if you look at, what's his book called? Skin or, anyway, he wrote a book. He wrote a book. He had a photo book printed a while back. I think it was called Skin. And I mean, he's got a lot of naked pictures of himself in there, pictures of himself with models in there. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Skin? Did you look it up? Anyway,
no.
It doesn't matter.
But I know that he does get naked when he takes photographs of I've seen photographs of him naked taking photographs.
I mean, he's sexual. He's everything. The guy is, I mean, I wouldn't, if Terry Richardson said, "Hey, Ron, I want to take a picture of you," I'd say, "You know, Terry, you're a great photographer. Let's get a list of things that we're going to do and a list of things we're not going to do in this shoot." And then we'll go ahead, because he's an awesome photographer and his name recognition would certainly propel somebody's career. But I think anybody going in, well,
like a propel a celebrity's career or propel another photographer's career?
It got Obama elected president.
I don't know.
You're talking about models, right, Ron? I mean, you're saying that it would launch a model.
No,
career.
models. Yeah, models. Yeah.
Okay.
I think a model goes in there, and like I said, he's a good photographer. Just like Harvey Weinstein, same thing, same kind of deal.
So he was
gives you
in
the
a position
blessing, you
of
get the
power,
rewards.
and he used that
But-
power to sexually harass women.
Well, I don't, as far as I understand, Terry wasn't saying, do this and I'll make sure you get more modeling jobs. I think he was just saying, I'm going to shoot you and you're going to do this. Is that okay? And the girl would be like, in her head, oh, okay, it makes sense. This guy's a famous photographer. If I do what he says, I might get more money. But he wasn't, as I understand it from years ago of hearing these stories, it was never a quid pro quo. It was just a, hey, I like to do this. Let me do it and I'll take your picture. That was my understanding of the situation.
Mm-hmm. I guess the news that's coming out is that basically not all of this was consensual and that people felt harassed.
Yeah.
And felt,
right, and that may be the case, but I don't know. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I would not have posed for the, even as a male. You know, I would not have posed for the guy without a pre-disclosure or whatever. What do you call that? Not pre-disclosure.
Prenup?
Anyway, prenup. Yeah, without a
Prenuptial
prenup.
agreement?
If I didn't have my prenup, I would not pose for this guy. Exactly. Thank you, Cheryl.
No, this is really a momentous time, I think. You know, it's interesting because, God, it's on the tip of my tongue, but, you know, it's like there's a lot of things that are coming out, not just to do with women, but also, who was the fellow who just came forward and said that he had harassed a 14-year-old boy, an actor.
That was,
and
Kevin Spacey.
Corey
Kevin Spacey, who then said, you know,
Kevin Spacey,
he was
yeah.
gay. And fortunately, you know, there were a lot of people in the gay community, you know, leaders who said, look, this was not the time for him to come out, you know. Like if he'd have come out a year ago, people would have lauded him and said, great. But for him to then take what is this very shameful moment of trying to pick up a 14-year-old and basically, you know, trying to hide pedophilia behind being gay. But, you know, I mean, this conversation, I think, is really, really in its infancy. And it's going to be interesting how this, you know, pans out, because I mean, we have a lot more issues even within our own industry, I think, that are going to reveal themselves.
Well, what's
right,
your take
not only
on
our industry, even. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you know, as a female visual journalist in our career field, what's your thoughts on sort of all of this stuff going on in general? I mean, do you think, like you said, so you think this will be something that, you know, rears its head in other aspects of our industry, or is it just more isolated, more towards Hollywood? And what are your thoughts on everything that's coming out?
You
Do
know,
you think it's good? Do you think it's a positive of it, you know, positive for everybody involved?
oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think that as journalists, you know, we need to take on things that are secret, that are taboo, that people are hiding, because I think that these are things that fester, and things that fester are what, like, you know, I don't know, probably end up giving you cancer or something down the line, right? So,
Right.
you know, unfortunately, this is something that we have not been comfortable talking about. And even until this day, you know, we really need to stop always, you know, it's like, yeah, we talk about, oh, this guy did this, but, you know, so far the question still seems to revolve a lot around the victim, and oftentimes that would be a woman. But the conversation is important. I think it's interesting. I mean, I hear stuff even today that surprises me, you know. Back in the day when I was in school, you know, I'd hear of things like this, and, you know, I always found it to be really disturbing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you're not talking about underage women, but definitely you're talking about situations where oftentimes, you know, the male figure was in a position of power and was using that position of power, knowledge, you know, but the whole power play, I think, is really, this is a very kind of I mean, that's, you know, a lot of times what Harvey was doing, you know, you know, just percentage wise, how many women have come forward and said they were actually assaulted, you know, are less than the ones that said, you know, it was a power play, you know.
Yeah.
And they felt very uncomfortable.
Well, you know, I'm surprised by is that, you know, we've had all this talk, you know, and of course, you know, Harvey Weinstein is done, so to speak, in the industry. I don't know. I mean, but, you know, with this industry, it's weird because you can do the most heinous, horrible things. Like I'm talking about Hollywood, not visual journalism. But you can do the most heinous, horrible things, and then a couple of years down the road, they all forgive you. So it's going to be interesting to see if people are interesting or willing to forgive and forget with Harvey Weinstein and allow him to make more movies, or whatever. Or I guess there's nothing stopping him from making his own production company by himself and funding it himself. You know, I mean, that's the weird thing about Hollywood is, like, you know, you can do a lot of things yourself, and it's crazy what Hollywood is willing to forgive. You know, with like that one guy who, you know, I think raped a 15-year-old or something, and
Roman Polanski,
right? You know, you got the guy who
raped a 15-year-old. Admittedly,
yes, he ran away from it. Hasn't been back in the United States. Or you got what's his face, the one who
the man's an artist. You can't mess with his art.
Who was it? Not John Travolta, but like Mel Gibson and his tirade a couple of years ago, and now he's back. He's doing more movies and stuff. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how Hollywood really reacts to this.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see the overall sentiment bleeding into other areas, and I really hope that it lends itself to an overall positive impact with regard to all aspects. I mean, I think the era where, you know, we as or the, you know, men in general could use their power and influence to persuade and hopefully, you know, and use that as sort of a way, as a tool to, I guess, leverage sexual misconduct. Hopefully that's over. You know, hopefully there'll be real change out of this. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, again, this could be the start of something big in terms of changing overall culture, but it could also be something that's a blip on the radar, and then we all go back to doing what we used to do. So hopefully not, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully it wakes up a lot of people, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, when the Harry Weinstein, Harvey, who's Harry Weinstein? His brother, Harvey's brother. When I first thing I thought was Terry
Richardson. Drink in a bar, a Harry Weinstein.
Yeah.
You order that. You drink it, you get knocked out for 6 hours.
Oh, God. Jeez.
When Harvey Weinstein's story broke, first thing I thought was, oh, gee, I wonder if they're going to catch up with Terry Richardson. Because he's like, I mean, out in the open about it. He's got pictures of himself doing it. Never mind allegations. He's got photographs. So I'm surprised it took this long for it to come out.
Yeah.
And George Bush grabbing girls' butts.
Oh, my gosh.
Saying David Copperfield's my favorite magician.
Oh, my gosh.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's crazy. It's really, I think, made a lot of people who wouldn't speak up beforehand very much brave enough to do so. So
yeah.
I'd be interesting to see where this goes from here.
Yeah. And, you know, conversations that I've had with other women, it's like, you know, people say the Me Too, right? Hash Me Too. And I think it's like the question is like, who hasn't had an experience like that?
Yeah.
How do you get to be an adult woman and not have some experience where it's you know, where your gender is somehow an issue, and that there is a situation like that? It's almost, I don't know. I mean, I would love to hear from a friend who would say, oh, yeah, I never had something happen to me. Well,
next week we'll interview the one person who hasn't had that experience. And we'll ask them, we'll ask their, then we'll have also a unicorn on that episode as well. All right, well, let's talk about our final topic this week. We're talking about the new Instax Share SP3. It's the first square format photo printer. So, you know, back in the day, we used to have, you know, instant film Polaroids. And we had Polaroids. That's right. And then, of course, that company went away, and we got digital. Well, of course, there's, you know, that sort of longing for the old-fashioned ways and sort of the instant film. And now Instax has created a printer where they can essentially print your photograph onto Polaroid prints. So I think what's neat about this is that essentially, you know, you don't have to take the picture with a cheapo Polaroid camera. You can take the picture with whatever camera you have, and then you're essentially printing it to Polaroid film. I think this is neat. I don't see myself getting a device like this personally. I'm not much for, printed out stuff, but I could definitely see this being something to where, perhaps if you are out and about, perhaps shooting a subject, or maybe you're like, for instance, I'm sure Cheryl, you could talk to this, you're out, shooting villagers in an event, and it's a way to sort of help put themselves at ease, because you're taking their pictures, taking their portraits, so you can then print a photograph out and give it to them. Is that something you would see as sort of a use for this, or do you see any sort of use for this yourself personally?
So is this thing like pretty petite? Is it like battery operated? Could it be out?
Yeah, it looks pretty small compared to the books that are on this bookshelf. It looks about probably the size of I don't know, like about the height of a phone, about the height and width of a phone, like a square size.
The height and width of a phone, like a smartphone.
Like if you took a smartphone, right, and then you rotated it, it's like height and width of a phone.
Yeah,
I would say, and then probably a little bit thicker than that. So it's like the size of a small book, if I were to guess.
Oh.
Because it's not much bigger than, because the size of a Polaroid print, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little bit bigger than that.
Wow. That's
yeah, it looks like a slightly thicker than a phone. Maybe 2 phones thickness, maybe.
Yeah.
3 phones.
Probably thicker than that.
I mean, actually, when I was after I left the embed, when I was with the Marines during the Iraq invasion, I parked myself in a Baghdad hotel, and one of the people that I ended up befriending was a German photojournalist, and he had brought a printer with him. Now, it wasn't anything as petite as that, but I bet that had that existed, he probably would have had that in hand. Now, I'm, for myself, I mean, yeah, that would be lovely to be able to make a printout for folks. I mean, that would be actually a really lovely gift, for people who, oftentimes, like my most recent assignment was in Bangladesh. I mean, these people have absolutely nothing. So to be able to give them a gift like that would be, quite amazing. But I must admit that, usually I'm already like maximized on my weight for the frame of my body and how much gear I carry, that the reality of that, I suppose if I could pawn it off on my Sherpa, maybe I might bring one.
There you go. Ron, if I were with you, would you be my Sherpa?
These run on NP50 batteries.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
What is that?
Well, it's a battery. The idea being it's battery operated, so you could carry this with you on assignment if you were so inclined. But
yeah, you can get 160 prints on a battery charge.
Great.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're gonna. I think this would be expensive, handing out a lot of photos to people you're shooting over there.
Well, again, I wouldn't say
uh,
print everything you do. I mean, yeah, it is kind of expensive. It's like $14
Really?
for a pack of 10 sheets. So it's like what, 70 cents a print or something like that,
Right.
or maybe 80
Maybe just
cents,
3
I
of
don't
the
know.
10 frames per second I shoot. Okay.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't think of giving everybody a print, but I mean, it could be something where you want to make nice and give gifts to people. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, I'll send you a link to that photograph online.
Right.
It's very impersonal,
Right.
but if you've got, if you're embedded with somebody, if you're developing a relationship with a group specifically, I could definitely see you wanting to print this out, give them a few prints for the group as sort of like a thank you gift.
Yeah. It sounds like kind of a charming little gimmick in the sense that it isn't just a regular print, right? Like it's actually got kind of the Polaroid effect and it's square. So,
Well, it looks like you can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can print anything you want. You can print multiple photos on a one sheet. You can do effects. You can do text on it. So, I mean, you can do whatever you want in the phone, and then you're just printing the actual image. So, let's say it's probably a little bit better, like I said, than your standard Polaroid printer. But again, I don't see a personal use for me. I would never get something like this. Like I said, if I want to print something, I can go to Amazon and print out prints for like 12 cents per 4x6 or something like that, and we can have prints in the house for do whatever we want. That's just me personally, but I could, definitely see, as a working photojournalist, perhaps this might be something you want to use to set yourself apart amongst the others. Or if you're perhaps someone who does work at events and you want to, sell people their photographs and give them something on like a unique platform, you could sell these for like $5 a piece or something. I don't know.
Right.
But
I don't know that photojournalism is exactly the right, function for that. But I'm sure there's an occasion where you might be, not trying to be as light on your feet, and you have a little bit of leeway to have a little extra weight. I think there's occasions like that. Yeah.
Yeah, this would be a perfect topic for Zach to talk about, because he has purchased the three Insta cameras that have, the printers built in, and it prints out the little, even smaller than a Polaroid, the little teeny tiny print. And he's done that, and he's made that something he tried to do for a bit, and he shot a lot of that at the inauguration. And we'll have to have him on to talk about that next week, about his personal experience and kind of like what he would see from something like this.
Yeah.
I never actually introduced you, Ron. What's that?
I was just saying, the case for home printing in general. I've never told this story before on air, but since Cheryl's here, I think it's appropriate.
Scoop.
Back in the film days, I did a lot of printing at Walmart in Dallas, Texas. Cheryl. The place, what's it called? Hypermart. You know Hypermart, huh?
The Hypermart. No.
Anyway,
but I do know
it was a Walmart Supercenter.
They would always ask you if you actually had the rights to that work.
That too. They do that too. Another thing they do at Walmart is,
which is good.
What's that?
Which is good. Like they want professional work, and then they ask, well, do you have, is this copyrighted work? Are you the holder of the copyright?
Yeah. I've plenty of times I've gone to Long's Drugs or whatever, and they say, I'm sorry, we can't print professional photographs. And I said, no, I'm the photographer. I'm the guy. Thank you very much for recognizing my professional work. However, I'm the guy. Yeah, exactly. No. What my story about Walmart was, there was one girl there at the Hypermart who would always steal my photographs.
Oh, no.
And she would tell everybody, guys, this is the guy. She'd get all the printers, the Hypermart, they got the photo center there. This is the guy. And I'm like, whoa, hey, how you doing? What did I do this time? This is the guy. I've got lots of your work in my house. I always make extra copies of your stuff every time you come in.
Wow.
And she had no problem telling you this, right?
No problem whatsoever. And I said, I can't get mad because she's going to do it anyway. At least she let me know. I can't, you can't get her fired.
At least they are pictures of you, Ron, that are set up in her altar with like candles and like, she prays to you every day. If it goes to that level, then you got issues.
Wouldn't be the first time. That's right. Wouldn't be the first time.
Oh my goodness. Well, that'll have to be a story for another show.
That's another show, Ron.
Shaking dead chickens over the photographs. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Ron. Well, that pretty much ends our show this week. I want to thank our panelist, Cheryl, so much for being on the show tonight. Really appreciate it. And Ron, I realized I never actually introduced you as my host, so I apologize. My co-host this evening has been Ron Hamilton, frequent.
If they don't know me by now, they don't deserve to watch. That's what I say.
That's right. They're not true fans.
Cheryl, maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo sa aming programa. I hope you can come back again sometime. It's really been a great pleasure.
Salamat.
Cheryl, is there anything you'd like to promote, point out, or tell us, how we can find out more about your work?
Well, I just launched my new website, which is a Squarespace website. I love it. Ooh. I had a Flash website that was really antiquated, so I'm really excited. And so CherylDiazMeyer.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Happy to interface with anyone.
Cool. You're happy with the Squarespace experience?
Yeah, pretty happy. I mean, I'm still in a bit of a conundrum about, PhotoShelter has the archive capability for selling, almost like an agency, and Squarespace does not. So I'm kind of trying to determine whether or not I need to have somebody write some code for that so I can do it, or what I need to do to make that. But
yeah, I can imagine Squarespace and Photo Shelter, there is no like plugin or something like that, you know, or some sort of like linking capability between the two. But
well, this I don't know. I think that you can potentially. I need to call Photo Shelter to find out whether or not you can just take the archive portion and then, you know, build that in. But my issue is, and maybe I'll be crucified for this by the Photo Shelter folks, but as an editor, when I was using Photo Shelter, I just never could find pictures in there. So oftentimes I would just reach out straight to the photographer and just say, hey, could you give me the photo? Because, you know, sell it to me, whatever, you know, we needed to do, because I would know that there was a photo in there, and just whatever it is the searching mechanism that they have. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't know how it worked. But so I don't actually want the Squarespace archive. I want the functionality that they have, but I want it to be a one that's that actually works. I'd like it to work like, honestly, like Getty.
right.
You know, like a real photo agency, where if somebody were to come in and they put in keywords that, you know, the right photos would come up, and the, you know, so this is kind of one of the, honestly, one of the like the banes of my existence at the moment, because transitioning into freelance, there is an incredible amount of administrative stuff that needs to get done just to start your business. But in order to actually like have your website functional, like everybody, I feel like, is scrambling around trying to, you know, invent the wheel for themselves. And yet a lot of the functionality that we need as a industry is all really the same. And yet none of us can seem to find like the perfect fit. Like when I talk to colleagues about, well, how do you solve this problem, or how do you resolve this thing? Nobody seems to have like a hands down, like, oh my God, this is the answer. And so I spend a lot of time actually, like, you know, I have spent a lot of time just trying to get all of the functionality in my business that I need.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe there'll be somebody around there who comes out and creates some sort of service that we can all use. Perhaps that'll come down the line. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah. Anyways, I'm hopeful. But I want to wish you, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope to have you on again in the future. Maybe we can have you and David on at the same time. That would probably be an interesting experience, I have to imagine. But Cheryl I want to
never get an word in edgewise.
Oh my gosh.
What's that?
Cheryl, you'll never get a word in edgewise.
Oh.
But
David's great. I love David.
Again, thank you so much, Cheryl.
Both of you.
And for Ron Hamilton, I am Zach Roberts. This has been Around the Lens, episode 98. Everyone have a happy and safe Halloween, and we are out. Okay, I'm done.